Welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling the After Party. It is October now. So I love October, actually. This is one of my favorite months of the year. October
Definitely.
and May. Those are two good months.
October.
Yeah,
October is my favorite. This is my Halloween tattoo.
that's
Ooh.
Yeah. I like it's the one day of the year, the one month of the year where like fantasy supersedes everything else and you can be whoever you want.
that's true. What are you going to be this year?
I was thinking about being a bat, but also I just
Ooh.
did a show where it was for STEM outreach. And so like the burlesque character that I put together was Beekman from Beekman's World, which is a really old reference.
I
It was a
saw your thing on Instagram. I was like, oh, that's fun, but I didn't know
yeah,
that it
it
was
was a kid show forever ago where they teach you about weird things like why your house makes noises at night and like why your body makes boogers. So like I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
have an outfit. I might just do that.
So, okay, so while your body makes boogers, this reminds me that I recently had a client, one of my like regulars who is has very like is autistic with very high support needs, and he asks me all kinds of questions that he's not allowed to ask other people, like who the other people in his life have said, "Why don't you save that till when you see Jessie?" So which is so cute because they're so happy that they're like, I really don't want to discuss this with my brother. So like, can you please take this over? So that's my role. And the other day he asked, well, when I saw him, I had to pee, so I peed. And he was like, "Can I ask you a question about peeing?" And I was like, "Yes." And then he said, "Why do women wipe after they pee?" And I was like, I don't know, because I was told to do that. And because then I don't stay wet. I want to be dry. And then he's like, well, doesn't it just like come out of your body? And I was like, you know what? Like, does it splash everywhere? And I was like, huh, I have to really like think hard because it's not something I put a lot of like mental energy into ever. And then I was like,
I
well,
mean, labia. It's the short answer.
Mhm.
you think it'd be an easy answer, but I was like, could I just shake it off? Probably.
As a kid who
I
grew up
mean,
outside, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
Like labia is really the short answer because those have to be pulled back
That's
and then you can pee and then you're shaking while holding things back. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. It's a little like you have to get good at it. You can. I highly advise it, especially if you're a person who likes to be outside. It's like, at least that was the method I was shown. It's but yeah, that's the short answer for me.
like
Like that's why we squat because it naturally parts the labia.
there with me because when he was asking, I was like, I don't know. But I'm not a camper, so
I'm like, I have a detailed answer.
I don't think about this. I'm like, there's no need for me to ever not wipe. So why would I even consider this? I don't know. So we had a long discussion about pee, like a very long one.
yeah.
All right.
I'm even when I'm camping, always wipe. I have the vagina designed to hold on to moisture.
I have one of those too. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the other answer is just hygiene. Things, water is life. It's always what I tell the kids, water is life. But that also means life for everything. That means bacteria love to live there. Where there is water, things will live. So be aware, and like our little ecosystem is pretty delicate. It doesn't need any extra bacteria coming in. Urine is waste for a reason.
I have never thought about this before. Why this is the first time that I've ever had, I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Besides to be dry. And then he's like, well, but couldn't like, doesn't it just fall out of your body? And I was like,
It's just different. Even with foreskin, it does just fall out of their bodies. They don't
yeah.
have additional things trapping it there. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways. Okay. Welcome to October.
Spooky.
Spooky. I love these kinds of like weird questions, like why do you have boogers? Do you have to why? Why do you have to why? I like body stuff in particular, but I'm just like a
Yeah.
body interested
Oh,
person.
biology is fascinating. It
Yeah.
really is.
Anyway, I'm Jessie Sage. I'm the host of When We're Not Hustling. I will let you two introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Emily Foster. I'm the producer of When We're Not Hustling. Please like, subscribe, follow, all those different things. And I'm just going to mention three things really, really quickly. Black Denim Digital is our new Black Denim. I didn't enunciate that clearly enough. Digital is our new partner. Do check them out in the world. Tris.com is also very cool and worth checking out. And also, the Social Good Fund is another partner. So we are just moving and shaking and changing. Listen to the podcast for more information on all those guys.
All right. And Milk, we are
I
so happy to
am
be back. This is fun already.
I am very excited to be back. This is always a good time, and I am Melissa Milk, Milk Glass on all my socials. I am a Pittsburgh local sex worker, kink practitioner, body worker.
We had a very fun session together last month.
Yes, yes, we did. That was a very good time. That was my first duo, and I'm very happy that it happened with you and the way that it did.
Was so fun. Like, and I loved it because it was a very long time regular of mine that I love so much. Like I love this person, like genuinely. And he's so sweet. And he was crushing so hard on Milk. It was so cute and I loved it. And then he says, because he's very just open with his thoughts, he's like, yeah, Jesse and I are like in a long-term relationship. There's no fireworks here. Do you remember that?
He's really,
Oh,
really,
my heart.
and he's like, but also like you could tell he's having the best time with you as well.
But he's like, he's because he's obviously like falling all over himself, like to be with them and is like, oh, you're here too. And I love you. But you know, you're like, I'm so
Uh,
you're
I
all
know how this goes, but anyway, speaking of fireworks,
exactly what happened.
oh, that's so lovely. I love that.
I was not offended at all. I was like, oh my God, this is the cutest experience. And then we go to dinner, and this is so fun. I have to just tell this story because I love it. It was so cute. We go to dinner, the three of us together. When the waitress brings us in, she sits me down, my client, and then Milk across the table. He literally gets up, walks around the table, and goes sits down next to Milk, and then puts his hand on their knee. And then, you know, then their food comes, drinks come, food comes. At some point, Milk turns to him and is like, you know, if you want your hand to eat your food, you can take it back.
I was literally like, I will put my hand, since it's my left hand, on your thigh so that you can have your right hand to eat because he was trying to
Oh,
eat with his left hand. It was really, it's a total testament to your matchmaking skills. How well that.
so sweet. The whole thing was so sweet. It was very fun. And then it was really funny too because I stayed for an overnight and they just were there for like part of it. And then we went to dinner and then Milk went home and it was so funny. It's like we are in a relationship because like a long-term relationship because then he turns to me and he's like after Milk leaves and says, "So, I guess we should probably go to sleep now." Good night.
He messaged and was like, as
Oh,
soon as the door closed and you left, we fell right asleep.
Good. But he said it. He was like, "So we should just go to bed now?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." He's
sure.
husband number, you know, but three.
Cute.
Oh,
No, we had a good time.
okay. So speaking of sweet men, Galen.
I know. I we listened to his interview this morning and I loved it. And it reminded me of why I started this show in the first place. Like, you know, I love the show and I love every guest we've had, but I love having these conversations about like spirituality and grief and all of the things that came about through his episode.
Listening to him read was, I can't even I can't really describe the experience. The writing was really, really beautiful. You can tell that he practiced that, and the story was incredible.
It was. It was so incredible. And the way he told it, you can also tell he's both a writer, a very good writer, and also has a theater background and performance background because it was amazing. Like that story was amazing. The way he told it, his cadence, his timing, like everything about it was so touching to me.
I'm curious if that was the first time it had been recorded, read live.
I think
Mm,
so.
we
Oh,
should ask.
yeah. Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
It's a wild story, though. I mean, I thought I was going to interview him about tantric massage, which I'm curious about, like, or tantric practices or whatever. Um, and I didn't realize that so much of that was connected to this, uh, to that story that he told about his aorta dissecting while he was in the middle of a session, and the fact that he was like, I actually thought maybe she was just like deferring her like pain to me. That was so powerful to think that you could go through something that's that physically intense and be like, oh, this must just be it speaks to the power of the kind of like work that takes place. Like to think because what he said in the interview was like, I had my hand over her heart and then his aorta literally dissected while he was in that session and he could feel it and he knew he was having intense pain, but he was like, I'm picking up on her feelings.
Yeah,
And that's wild.
I've definitely had experiences in the past where I've felt empathetic enough that I could see being in a position where you're trying to open someone's heart. That's literally what they're asking for. And if I had experienced the same thing, I probably would have gone into the same train of thought. Like, this is empathy. This is, I'm taking on someone else's pain. I'm glad that he realized that his heart was actually shredding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta say, I grew up in all of this. I grew up practicing Tibetan Buddhism, just complete hippies everywhere. I got to meet Baba Ram Dass. I want to tell you of all the weird old hippie things and cults and ideas that you hear of. Baba Ram Dass he was a real one. Like,
That's
I,
what he said.
I,
Yeah.
like he's yeah, still I quote him all the time. We're all just walking each other home is Baba Ram Dass, and that's just like, and I literally grew up with him, met him as a child, and then he had his book. He had this famous hippie coffee table book with all the pictures in it, and from a very young child, there was the one about ice cream. I just loved that lesson. It's, you eat an ice cream and then you finish it, and then it's all beautifully illustrated and drawn. And then you want another one, and then you have it, and then you want a glass of water, and then you have that, but then you want to go and take a walk. And it just sort of like described train of thought on paper. And, I was just presented with this concept. And then with, we would have Tibetan lamas come and talk to groups. So there was just from as soon as I was thinking about thought, it was presented to me as something that existed outside of me, which is
Mm.
really cool. Kind of tangentially going out here. But anyway, I was raised in this shit, clearly. in it. And when I heard that we were going to interview a tantric massage person, there's a little cynicism in me. I have heard tantric massage misused in the shittiest ways. I've watched it turn into sexual abuse and be called holy over and over and over. And I was like, okay,
Mhm.
Yep.
okay.
It's also a common theme in my community in the kink world that people will refer to themselves as like tantric energy workers and have
Yeah.
almost consistently crossed lines with people and boundaries of consent.
they seem to use it as an excuse to cross boundaries of consent.
Yeah.
You know,
So
that's a huge part of it, where it's like, oh, no, no, no. This is for your own spiritual good bullshit. And I just, anyway, there was a healthy cynicism coming into this for me. And as I listened to this story, both the first time and reviewing it again for this, I was just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a feeling of, oh, it does fucking work though.
yeah.
Like it does though. All of this shit that I did grow up in that affects me every day. Every day I live my life in ways that, you know, when Galen was speaking, I'm like, yeah, like that. Yeah, of course, duh. You know, and it does work too though. And there's sort of a feeling of like, I don't know, it's not justification because I certainly don't proselytize, but it's redemption maybe of always being so weird and so outside and so not like anyone and trying to figure it out, you know, and then being like, yeah, but a lot of this was kind of true and good and helpful like all the time. And then he comes out and like he is what tantric work is supposed to be. It's supposed to be work of the heart that can also include every aspect of the body and the openings that can only happen when we're being sexual, because some things stay repressed and some things are just only in that sacred space. And like it just, yeah, I liked everything about it. It was so beautiful. And I'm a writer of poetry, and it just blew me away. Everything about that. It just, I don't know. Anyway, I came into it like, I don't know. And I came out of it like, oh.
Yes to that.
that you saying all, it inspired all in me. And it is,
yeah.
Having been on the show before and said things like, I find myself being a cynicist, but also like really seeing signs in things, and to have heard him speak of being in that session, doing work on someone's heart chakra, and then most likely if he had ignored the pain and been alone, he would have died.
That's so
And,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But instead, like that, and to hear about how that was like an opening, like a heart opening for both of them. Like he describes this person as like one of the closest people in his lives now, because they went through this like intense experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, there was so much about it that, like I said at the beginning of this, like listening to him, I was like, this, I have had like such amazing like aha moments throughout this show, but like I was like, oh, this is why I do this show. Like I love these conversations. And I was talking to him this morning on just on Twitter, like saying, oh, we're gonna, do your after party today. And um somehow it came out, I was talking about how I really love these sorts of conversations, and I'm thinking about you, Emily, and what you just said about like how you grew up. And he said, because he listens to the show, that's how he came to me, as like, he's aware, like
Nice.
it wasn't random, like he is like, oh, I listen to your show and I do this thing. And he said, right, and you have a Buddhist mom. And I was like, oh, did you listen to the and he's like, yeah, because you have a Buddhist mom. And I was like, oh, did you listen to the shows that my mom is on? And he's like, yes. And I was like, well, she contextualizes me. And but as moms do, as you can tell when you meet somebody's mom, you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
Wow is usually how I come out, like, wow, you did a great job. Yeah. Yeah.
but I think that there's like something, that there was something that was interesting about that, because you're saying like, you resonated with this for a certain reason. And him listening to my mom on the show was like, oh yeah, there's like a certain like kindredness about like being in, and I didn't grow up in Hawaii, I grew up in California, but when I was in California, we had Tibetan Buddhists that came to my university and built a mandala, and it was just like there's so much more openness there to like alternative spirituality like in the West than there is here. And we don't have as much of that exposure here, but I grew up with it.
Yeah. No, when I talked to Ben about our very disparate childhoods, he grew up in Western Pennsylvania. Um, he's like, "Oh, yeah, you would have been a devil worshiper. Like, that's
He
if
didn't.
you had been doing this out here in those times, that's how that was branded. Like, you're clearly worshiping idols that look like demons. Like,
PJ said they got called a devil worshiper for growing up Catholic, for being Catholic.
yeah, no, the different sects are issues, but anything outside of that is just
They were like, just being Catholic was like wild enough, you know.
right.
Um,
He did clarify that if I had come here like that, I would just be viewed whole scale as a broken, weird hippie,
mhm, mhm.
and then it would all be part of it. But if I had grown up here and made that choice, that would be a very, very big thing. Like, it would just like I'd be kind of like a pet if I was liked, like, oh, it's a hippie, it doesn't know any better, you know. I was like, okay, gotcha. So complete outsidership if I had come in with it. But if I tried to pick it like
Mhm.
pitchforks, it's like, yeah, basically.
A very big outsider when I moved here from California. I moved here from the Bay Area in '06. I feel like the city is like is changing a lot and opening up a lot. But when I moved here in '06, um, I felt like an alien here. Like I did not know how to connect with people. I did not know what was going on. It's so like
Yeah.
rooted here in like generations of people that they were like, you're from Cal. I remember like when we first bought our house, me and my ex-husband bought a house when we moved here, and they were like, the neighbors like approached us like we were, wild and these wild creatures that came from some foreign place. And they asked us questions like, well, first of all, there was fear that like because we came from California, we like bought the house with cash and our like prices. But he was a med student and I didn't have a job. So I was like, what? No, we didn't buy our house with cash. Like, we're not rich. And then they were like, oh, like California people, are you gonna like smoke pot on the, porch? And I was like, no, we don't. But my mom does smoke pot on my porch when she comes to visit. So, like it's not that far.
I might.
One time my mom came to visit. This is a total aside, but people who listen to the show know my mom, so you'll find this amusing. PJ and I took like one of the rails off of our front porch just because it was looking ugly and we are going to buy a new one, which we haven't replaced yet. And my mom comes to visit. My mom's like, what happened to the railing? And I was like, I don't know. We took it off. It looked ugly. And she's like, we need another one. And I was like, Mom, it's fine. And then she was like, what if I get stoned and fall off the porch? I don't know.
Valid. Valid.
I don't know, Mom. You're going to have to just work that out. That's all.
That's so funny you say that about like being here from California. Ben uses it in what we like to call mixed company. So, like, if we go to do an open mic at a bar,
Mhm.
um, he likes to loudly announce to the first person we're talking to, like, oh, we just got back from California. That's where we were living. Like he uses it as I don't know. I guess it's a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle, even if it's a negative thing, but he uses it as short-term shortcut to like, yes, we are liberal and you need to know that about us. Don't come over here talking to us about shit. And it's as soon as he pointed it out, I was kind of oblivious, but like as soon as he pointed it out, like I would notice like TV stations change and like some people kind of turn their backs and other people get more interested. And like, I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like that really means something.
Like out in the outskirts. So
Yeah, we're in the boonies, to be clear. Like, no offense to Indiana, it's got a college and everything. But like, if we leave town for an open mic, it's an even smaller town. Like, there's not. Um, so he just wants to sort of cut through any friendliness that may be based on appearances alone.
A Cupid profile to weed out people who would judge them, but said that they were a LARPer. But I didn't know what LARPing was. So I have no cultural reference for that, like at all. And then, like 6 months into the relationship, I didn't look it up because whatever. I didn't take this OkCupid profile very seriously. Turns out that they're my like soulmate, but whatever. So, so then, like 6 months into the relationship, they start talking about it, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're like, I said I was a LARPer, and I was like, what is a LARPer? And then they're like, the foam swords and the like chainmail, and I was like, what? But then I was like,
I actually don't know what's going on here at all.
That's funny because the people I know that LARP are like queer adjacent or possibly like bi, but they're also cis. So I'm like, for me, someone putting that they're a LARPer on their profile wouldn't really tell me much about them.
I mean, this was a long time ago. This was more than 10 years ago, but still, I
Sure.
was like, I don't know what that is.
I'll tell you what it weeds out is it weeds out the judgy cis
Oh yeah,
people.
definitely.
It's not
Definitely.
Like,
you can't
because
like
LARPers are teased as a cohort, like any marginalized society would be. They're not a marginalized society, but they're a group of people who like to do something that is out of the mainstream.
yeah.
Taylor Swift will never be caught LARPing. More's the pity. I might like her if she did. Like, so it definitely cuts that group out. There's this big old group of normies that it's like,
No,
oh,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyone who would go, oh, like,
Yeah.
and then, there's a group of people who know what it is and don't do it, but are like, oh, my people.
I just happen to be attracted to nerds. And even if I
Yeah.
don't culture, like I don't even know what LARPing is. I'm like, yeah, you're a nerd. You'll do. Yeah. I like smart people.
LARP and nerd definitely live together for sure. I don't think anyone would take offense at that. That's valid.
People who are a little off and who I like queer smart people. Those are my
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, same.
Anyway, back to the interview. Uh yeah,
Poor
I
Galen. Galen, you touched our hearts so much that we have to like diverge into like lighthearted things so that we aren't sobbing on this, I swear.
it's true. Well, also it's like when you open your talking about like our backgrounds and our parents and our partners, like the things that like shape us, that
Yeah,
unrelated, I don't think.
absolutely not.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm
Thing is related.
Yes.
also
Double negative there. It's all related.
What were you
it's I was just gonna say, I don't know if I got to tell you this the last time we were together, but Emily, this will be new for you and you will identify with this. I recently did like a large dose of mushrooms for the first time.
Hmm.
And now
Nice.
like I do have to say it brings so much more context to the whole like people going on spiritual journeys when they're affected by substances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote
It's a
about that.
little bit of a like, why would anyone?
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I wrote about this in my column today that came out, well, as of the day that we're recording. I was writing about having aphantasia, like I don't see pictures in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and learning that I don't do that because I didn't know that other people actually saw like images in their, like it's hard to know what you don't know, 'cause
Right.
I've only experienced the world in one way, which is like entirely pictureless. And I and I think you gain a lot of self-knowledge too, though, because and I wrote about this in my column, when I started my ketamine journey, like the guide who was with me was like, can you describe what you saw? And I was like, I had a face mask on. I saw black. it's black. Everything's entirely black. I had a very intense sensorial experience. I had a lot of concepts that I thought through. Um, I don't see anything. Like, I don't ever see anything. I also don't have any dreams, And so, like,
Right.
there's something so, like, interesting about, like, having something that pulls you out of your, like, standard consciousness that also sheds light on your consciousness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's really, I mean, I don't know if there's another way to observe or to really consider consciousness.
Right. You do kind of have
You
to,
know?
yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's kind of how our brains are built, but also it's hard to, when I talk to people who have never done psychedelics or not interested in them, and the question is often why, why would you do that? What's wrong with you? It's like, well, you're neurotypical, aren't you? Let's just start there. Like, but trying to express like what the benefit of having something that altered your consciousness was.
Mhm.
And and it's like, well, you have to start with the premise of not everyone just wakes up joyful in their consciousness. So some of us are seeking alternative ways to see things and to perceive things, and we're looking for a shift in that, but once you accept that, well, the benefit would be being able to consider consciousness as something that exists in the world and that you currently both possess and can consider. And they're like, oh, I'm like, right.
Mhm.
Like, it's a useful tool for ideas like that if you are interested in that kind of thing.
It does feel
Not
like,
everyone's a philosopher.
yeah, that like this, having a conversation about the podcast and it like leading to us speaking on other experiences and like having banter, it does feel like psychedelics are a great way to experience consciousness, like your separatedness from consciousness, but like it feels like the only other way to sort of get that experience is to share information with people, to share, to have the like euphoric or ecstatic exchange of energy between minds and bodies, which sort of removes us from ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that specifically, there are some specific drugs, mushrooms probably primarily amongst them. That's the nature of fungus that really remind us of that, remind us that we are social beings, that we are connected, that we're supposed to be exchanging ideas and feelings and touch and all of these different things. And we're not made to be in isolation. And even though we consider things in isolation, that's how we think about them. Like, there is no such thing as an apple. That doesn't actually exist, because an apple exists on a table after being picked by a tree that was grown from rain. That it's like, it's an entire interconnectedness exists in everything around us all the time, always. And we get lost in thought experiment, especially without drugs that remind us of our connectedness. And like, I think that's one of the greatest benefits of all the psychedelics, is they remind us like, hey, you're supposed to be exchanging. Go get some stuff.
That's kind of what I loved about the way that sexuality gets woven into, like, how he was talking about tantra too, because I think that we tend to disregard sexuality as a culture, not like the three of us,
Yeah.
but as a
Oh no, our cultures all demonize it.
yeah,
I think more than
disregard.
ignore, it's make it bad. Yeah.
What we're talking about is like opening our minds and hearts to people, but sometimes it's opening our bodies to people that allows us to open our, like, hearts and minds. And that's one of the things that I, like, love about my work, is being able to, like, fluidly, like, move in and out of those experiences. And it's what made me interested in Galen's work too, talking, because even though and also just the expansiveness of sexuality, because I mean, one of the things that they said at the start of the show is like, I'm not a full service provider. I don't have sex with my clients, but like I experience these like sexual like openings and arousals and experiences, and that seems really important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I mean, the work that I do has, even when there's no sex, has like a heavily sexual connotation for a lot of people. And
Mhm.
I just, I mean, as of recording this, recently posted like a chair bondage session with someone and posted it on my Instagram. And you can see the way that like there's arousal involved, even though there's no technical sex happening. And it's like, even just someone experiencing that arousal in a place where they've intentionally put themselves, whether it's with me or with someone else, the way that that adds to their life experience, to their perceptions, even when they leave outside of the space, the chemicals that it creates in your body and the way that it improves your quality of life is insane.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's probably a good place to end this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Jessie Sage. This is the first week of October, and I am so grateful that we got to talk to Galen about the work that they're doing.
I'm Emily Foster, the producer of When We're Not Hustling. Please like, subscribe, share, tell the whole world about us.
I'm like, am I supposed to do an outro? I'm Milk Glass.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.